Welcome. It's been a bit of a hectic holiday season for me, though thankfully I was able to get a ton of work done on Ponpai, and I'm proud of the results. If this is your first time on the channel, Ponpai is a tactical strategy game where you befriend monsters. If you want to know more about the game, I'd recommend starting with the introductory video, which is linked in the description. As soon as my last devlog went up, I got to work on making cutscenes. And by cutscenes, I don't mean pre-rendered videos or anything like that. My mission was to come up with a function that would let you talk to an NPC, which causes the NPC to move, then continue talking. I haven't mentioned this yet in my devlogs, but the way I handle dialogue is that each NPC is assigned a dialogue tree when the scene loads, and in each room there's a hidden dialogue box. Talking to an NPC makes them transfer their tree to a dialogue box, which then plays through the text in order. When I want to make something special happen, such as selling an item or giving the player an option on how to respond, I use text boxes that don't actually show up in the dialogue, but cause something to happen in the background. So all I had to do was make a new type of dialogue that makes the NPC move around. I already had code for the NPCs to move, so making this wasn't as hard as it could have been. I just plugged in some variables to tell the NPC in question where to go and at what speed, and... oh. So previously I made it so the NPCs would collide with the player to stop them moving through the player. Because of that, if you position a player in the way of the NPC during a cutscene, you'll be at a standstill. The NPC won't stop moving, and you can't move out of the way since you're technically still talking. So I had to implement a new variable that lets NPCs move through you specifically during dialogue. I also set up an invisible barrier that causes dialogue to start, in this case to block the player from progressing without talking to Nico. It was a bit harder to make code that moves the player smoothly, since I don't have automatic movement set up for the player. So right now you just teleport to the left. More importantly, though, I didn't want to go through the whole speech every time I saved and loaded the game. Up to this point, I didn't have a way to save NPC options between rooms, let alone saves. For example, there's a guy at the bottom left of the room that fills out your bestiary for you. But if you leave the room and come back, he would ask again if you wanted him to fill it out. Using an array kept in the game node, where all the important information is, options like this can now be kept for the rest of the save file. Since I was trying out cutscenes, I added one that launches as soon as you enter the building. In the end, it went move NPC, move player, move NPC, teleport NPC off the screen, end dialogue. But then that caused an issue where the dialogue box would reappear as the NPC was moving for a second time. I eventually figured out that my code set the dialogue box to reappear as the NPC stopped moving, so that the next bit of speech could play out. I simply set it to only reappear if there's actually speech coming up next, and that was that. In the last devlog, I gave the player character sprites to walk in all 4 directions, though I couldn't get it to work with mouse movement or diagonals. Then I came across a couple videos by HeartBeast, who goes over the animation players and animation trees. Not only are these so much more efficient than manually changing an animated sprite, but the tutorial videos themselves are very clear and thorough. I highly recommend these videos if you want to learn more about them. The links will be in the description. But long story short, they hold a whole bunch of animations within them, which can be called based on the closest direction. Now she can handle mouse controls and diagonal movement. I set the animation tree to prioritize the up and down sprites over the left and right sprites, since I think the up and down sprites look a little better. On the battle side of things, I've added a new Ponpai species, Wisewax. I actually used one as the NPC that fills out your bestiary, but I figured now was the time to bring them into the game, for one large reason. I wanted their primary attack to cause confusion. In most RPGs, confusion causes the target to randomly attack either themselves or a teammate. And I knew exactly how I wanted to translate that to Ponpai's battle system. When a Ponpai is confused, their attacks will be rotated 180 degrees, as if they were standing on the reverse point on the enemy's team. Rotating the attack was simple, but I was struggling to find a way to get the mirror tile without going, this tile connects here, this tile connects here, etc. A friend pointed out that I can just reverse each axis individually, which saves on a ton of space. For some reason, even though the area of effect on trap setting attacks is flipped properly, the actual trap spawns normally. I'll look into that later. Finally, I've added proper functionality to befriending random Ponpai. The code was always there, but I've polished the presentation a bit, and evened out the number of Ponpai you need to fight. After fighting a species of Ponpai 3 to 5 times, they'll approach you, say something, and then you can either accept or reject them. I still have this issue where they'll appear almost at random in your collection, but that's also something I'll fix later on. The main point is, the system is functional enough as is. And that's everything so far. If you want to try this out for yourself, the link to the prototype will be in the description. Otherwise, look forward to the next devlog, where I'll be trying to make the environment look a little more alive. Thanks for watching.